Hi there, and welcome to the HFS Career Podcast. My name is Dr. Lori Bullock, and I'm an assistant professor in human development and family studies at MSU. I teach several courses in the department, and one of them is HDFS 270, which introduces students to this major and to the field of family science. Quite often, students who are new to our major are not quite sure of the career options they have with a degree in human development and family studies. Some students know exactly what they want to do, and some students aren't quite sure and can sometimes feel overwhelmed. And there are other students who are in our major but plan to pursue a career in the healthcare field. These would be students who know that they want to be nurses or doctors or child life specialists, occupational therapists, and so on. The purpose of this podcast is to bring professionals on from many different areas. Each episode, I invite a professional from the community who has a background in HDFS or one that is similar to HDFS. I'm so excited you joined the podcast, and I hope today's episode will be helpful to you as you consider your career options. Hello, HDFS students and colleagues. I'm so excited about today's guest. He is Dr. Brian Johnson, and he is Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the James Madison College here at MSU. Dr. Johnson holds a Bachelor of Science degree and a Master's of Teaching degree from Hampton University in Early Childhood and Psychology, and a Juris Doctor degree from Western Michigan University-Cooley Law School, with a concentration in constitutional law and civil rights, and he holds a Ph.D. from Michigan State University in human development and family studies. Dr. Johnson's scholarly interests focus on examining the constitutionality of laws and policies that affect youth and college-age underrepresented populations. He also has a particular interest in exploring and increasing sense of belonging among underrepresented groups at the college level. In addition to teaching at the undergraduate and graduate levels, he has over 10 years of experience directing pipeline recruitment and retention programs. Also a certified elementary teacher, his pipeline programs focus on preparing students for college during the K-12 years and ensuring that they receive the resources for success throughout their college experience. His advising, recruitment, and retention initiatives have been recognized at the university and state levels. Dr. Johnson, thank you for joining the podcast today to share your experiences. I have just been in awe reading about your career journey, and I admire all that you have accomplished. And even though you and I have a history of working together in HDFS, I'm just so proud to see where you've gone from HDFS, and very excited for you to be here and for our students to learn from you.
Dr. Bullock, it's so great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And just so you know, I owe a lot of that to you. Students, it's great to see you too virtually. But for those of you who don't know, you probably don't know, I TA'd for Dr. Bullock. And so she was one of she supported me along the way. She's seen me every step throughout these processes. And then when I was teaching in HDFS, she was supportive as well. So I'm appreciative to you for that and for the opportunity to talk to the students today. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And it was just so great working with you, all along those years. So it was great.
You're a mentor of mine and remain that. And students, I keep talking, I'm not face to face to you, but you are lucky to have her. So remember that she is an advocate for you. She'll support you. Just make sure you talk to her, go to office hours, all those things. She's there for you. And I can honestly say that I've seen it. I've TA'd for her, seen students come in. So you are very lucky, just so you know.
Well, thank you for that. So what I really want is for students to learn about you, because you have such a really interesting career path. Can you tell us a little bit about you and how you got to where you are now? Because your path is so varied and it's just so really interesting.
Thanks a lot. Sure. So I think one of the and you all will understand this being with HDFS, my path is interdisciplinary. And that's one of the things, and I'll tell you about how HDFS connected it all, but I have an interest in teaching, in psychology, in law. And one of the great things about HDFS is you're able to put those things together. So I've taught. I'm certified at the K-5 level and interested in constitutional law and civil rights, working with children and abuse and neglect and making sure that's not happening. So advocating for children. Marion Wright Edelman is one of the people who got me interested in law with the Children's Defense Fund. During my summers when I was majoring in psychology, I would come home and we get out early, from college, and so I would substitute teach during those times. And one of the days I was assigned to a children's home called Whaley. I'm from Flint, and one of the students, one of the children had burn marks on his arm, so he had been in a neglected family, and that's one of the reasons I became interested in law. Never really wanted to practice, but I was interested in advocating for children's rights and those kinds of things. So I never intended to practice, but one of the great things about law is you can use it in a variety of ways. So you don't have to practice. You can use it for advocacy. You can use it for teaching, a lot of different things. So always been interested in that. As you mentioned, working with pipeline programs, so programs that recruit students into college and acclimate them to college and let them know, what they can do in college, and also interested in teaching. So those things kind of combined, and then human development and family studies is what connected all of them. So working with families. So got my doctorate in HDFS, and that was the thing that connected law and psychology and teaching, and so those things together. So I'm a fierce advocate for HDFS because it's so interdisciplinary, and it meets your interest, and it all comes down to working with families, and if you're interested in advocating. And so out of that, I worked in HDFS, taught for a while, then went on to extension. Extension is throughout Michigan's 83 counties, so working with the community. And that's something that I was interested in because there's a wall, and we help break that wall between higher ed and the communities. So did that with the Children and Youth Institute. And now I'm over at James Madison, and I'm an assistant dean for DEI. So some of the things I do, work with students, bringing them into James Madison and acclimating them to MSU, working on climate surveys, making sure that the students are comfortable in their environment, and just making sure that we are in a climate that's helpful and productive, and making sure that students and faculty and staff feel like they belong. So that's some of the things I do at James Madison within DEI, and they're all related because ultimately it comes down to advocating and working with community members and families and teachers and everyone to make sure that we're serving you, the students. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Thank you for explaining that. And it's such an important job too. And I love how you focused on the interdisciplinary aspect of HDFS. And I think that's what makes it so exciting, in that there's so many different ways that students can go and use this degree.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see it, you see it all the time. And you see it whether you're interested in criminal justice or psychology or sociology with the social sciences. HDFS is a way to connect it with those things. So, sometimes you may not know what you want to do, but you're interested in some of those things. But HDFS is a way to connect those interests and align with those interests. So that's one of the unique things with human development and family studies.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and so my next question, you address this a little bit, but I still want to ask it to see if there's any more you have to say with us because of your varied interests. So when I ask most of the people that I interview, what made you choose this career path that you followed? Did you always know you wanted to do this? Because you started out like in psychology and teaching. Is that what you thought you always wanted to do, or did you have an
Right.
idea of what you always wanted to do?
Oh, and that's a good point. I did not have an idea what I wanted to do always. I started out, well, initially my plan was to go into medicine. And that just wasn't in the cards for me. So I recognized that. But that was my initial plan. And so I was interested in psychology. So I thought about practicing. I looked at a PsyD program for a while. And then I just was led to teaching when I started during the summers doing substitute teaching. And so I had a varied path too. It was definitely not planned, and I had ebbs and flows. And I thought about medicine, then I was undecided. Then I thought about psychology, practicing psychology. So that's another thing. It's okay not to know, because ultimately you find out what you want to do if you just keep at it. And sometimes it's okay to not know. So, going to you or going to advisors or Jenny and talking about, even if you remotely say, okay, these are some of the things that I'm interested in, this is, you can find your way. But I think there's nothing worse than going down a path that you're not enjoying. You're not enjoying the classes, and you change your mind. You have a long time to do whatever you're going to decide. So you owe it to yourself to do something that you're interested in. So for me, ultimately, I was thinking it would be medicine or psychology, but as I had that experience at Whaley with the Children's Center, it changed my mind, and then it just veered my path along. So I did not know, I wasn't sure, but it just kind of led its way at some point.
That's great. Thank you for that. And so my next question, I actually kind of thought of it as we were talking, so I hope it's okay that I
Right.
throw a new one at you.
Of course.
Um, we have several students who are interested in going into law or policy or advocacy. And you have talked about that as you were talking about yourself. Do you have any advice or things that you would recommend that students can do if they're interested in that route and they just don't understand the connection or what to do with HCFS if they want to go into like family law, policy, or things like that?
Sure. So when I was teaching, that's a really good point too. One thing I think we don't know enough about, or we don't say it enough. You can do a lot of different majors. You don't have to go into criminal justice with law. Sometimes we think that's the path, but HDFS aligns a lot with law, because we're working with families, and there's some things that align perfectly. So if you don't hear anything else that I said, don't assume that just because you're not on the criminal justice track that you can't go to law school. Literally, you take the LSAT, you can take a practice course, and that'll help you. But some of the things I think that might be helpful as you're going along, look at maybe interning during the summer. If you don't know about, if you're interested in family law and you like to know more, the summer is a great time to, work in an office. You might do it for, on a volunteer basis. And there's some things that you can just get some experience with. Just maybe you find out that's not the area of law that you're interested in. So an internship would be a great time for you to learn about it. And then taking some elective classes while you're at MSU, just to help you know about it. We have a good program, that's the adolescent diversion program, that helps you know about working with juveniles. So maybe just taking a class while you're at MSU, just to give you some insight about it. Reading as much as you can, just looking online and keeping abreast of what's going on, with cases, those kinds of things. Those are things that'll help you. But literally realizing that there's no certain major that you have to go into law. You can go a lot of different routes. You can be an English major. You can absolutely be an HGFS major. So there are many different ways you can do it. Just knowing that you're going to take a prep course that will get you ready for the LSAT, and then maybe just having an internship and speaking to attorneys who are out there in the force. Maybe just a cold call, and just say you'd like to learn more. We can always find HCFS alum or anyone. There's networking opportunities that will help you learn more. But there's no set path for law school to prepare you. You take a test, you prepare for the test similarly, similar to the ACT, and you have a time to prepare for it. So you all as HTFS majors, and some of you aren't, your social science, you're well equipped to go on the law path if you want to.
That's great to know. Yeah, you provide a lot of really good tips. The prep course for the LSAT, is that within a certain college within university, or how do they find that?
Right. So there, and another thing I forgot, Dr. Bullock, you can look into a pre-law club that might be helpful too, and that's across the university. So you could look into a pre-law club. They'll advertise throughout the university a variety of programs. So Kaplan used to have a prep program, but you'll hear more about it. Literally, they'll have postings sometimes when a course is starting. I know JD Advising has a good prep program. So when you get closer to your junior and your senior year, just look for some flyers that are advertising law school prep programs. They're throughout, and you may just get in addition like a book, a Kaplan book or Cracking the LSAT. That's your self-paced book, but I would also recommend a prep program if you can. But you can also do I think Khan Academy has one now, so it's not unique to a certain school because there are a lot of different majors who are preparing for the test too. So just look around when it gets close to junior or senior year. You'll see some advertisements, and if anything else fails, I'm going to give you my email address, and you can reach out to me or reach out to Dr. Bullock, and she'll get in touch with me, and I can help you find some things too. But it doesn't matter; it's not specific to a major. They usually advertise throughout.
All right, that's great to know. And I really like the tip about a pre-law club too. I don't know why I hadn't thought about that. And so, yeah, that would be ways to meet other students who might be interested in going in, and maybe you learn about or meet some connections too to people that are practicing in the community.
Right. That's absolutely
Yeah,
right. Yep. It's a good way to network. Yep. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Good. And I also wonder about, because you had mentioned, reaching out to different law offices and
Mm.
talking with a lawyer, but also thinking about some of the nonprofit and other organizations that do advocacy work and policy and things like that. I think you mentioned Children's Defense Fund.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, and some other organizations like that.
Right. Yeah. So Children's Defense Fund, the neat thing about it is they break down statistics based on hunger, on gun violence, and they have literally a database where they show you state by state the statistics for each of those things. So they have a network of attorneys and staff whose job is to just examine what's occurring in each of the states, and they rate the percentage by states, and it's just a lot of advocacy. And there's a public when I think about it, there's a public policy class in HDFS. So it aligns with the things that you're learning in that class. But it really shows you hunger rate, number of students who are receiving SNAP, and just things that are related to advancing public policy. And so that's another way that people use law. They use it, to advocate for things like that in the community. You don't have to be in a courtroom per se. There are a lot of different things you can do to advocate for law. But yeah, Children's Defense Fund, and like you said, Dr. Bullock, nonprofits. There are a lot of different things. There's staff attorneys that they need for things. You may write wills, you may do taxes. So just know that law is broad. There are a lot of different ways you can use law, and you don't have to, have that picture of being in front of a jury in a courtroom. If you do that, that's great. But there are a lot of different ways that you can use that as a tool for advocacy too.
Yeah, that's such great information, and thank you also for explaining about Children's Defense Fund, and hopefully that'll empower some students to reach out to either that organizations or others like that within Michigan, and maybe do an informational interview, um,
Right.
and possibly maybe there are internships or something like that.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mhm.
All right, I got lost in my questions because we were
No,
dug into that.
that's
Um,
good.
Well, and you kind of answered this next question too, because when I asked about advice, um, what advice for students would they have if they're interested in pursuing a law or a degree or a career in that field? So we talked about that, but you've done so many things. Do you have advice for students if they want to look more into the diversity, equity, inclusion and that area of growth that is happening? Do you have any advice about how they might pursue something like, if they wanted to pursue something like that for a career?
Sure, sure. So I think the best it's advice I might give if you're interested in DEI would be maybe looking at a committee, volunteering within your college or your unit. We have well, you all, I still informally think of myself HCFS, but HCFS has a DEI committee. So if you want to, let someone know that you want to be a part of that, you get the opportunity there to do a lot of things. And it's, working with faculty and staff who are invested in advancing the climate. That's one of the best ways to get experience. And so really reaching out to your DEI committee and starting there, or coming up with ways or getting in touch with someone who is in charge of DEI. If there's an idea you have for wanting to start a program, or if there's something that's not sitting right with you, if you feel like you need to talk to someone, just getting in touch with that person and letting them know how they can support you. But I think those are two ways to just really, get involved. And if the committee isn't accepting applications or at that point, keep in touch with the DEI person and let them know some of the things that you would like to start, or some of the things that you're interested in, or any of those things are ways to connect and get things going. Just because you're not part of the committee doesn't mean you're not part of advancing DEI. There are a lot of different ways that you can do that as well. So I think A would be a committee, being a part of that. But if not, talking to someone who's in the DEI capacity and letting them know some of the things that you're interested in. And I think that would be helpful.
That's a great idea because we have, different organizations within the College of Social Science and the university as a whole that address DEI specifically. And our students are so creative sometimes that you're right. If they have an idea for a program, chances are pretty high someone higher up is going to want to hear about it.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's utilize those things. It's a good process and good experience for you to write about and advocate and learn how to get something through the channels that you're interested in. So that's how things, start from the ground up. So that's the best experience in general. And also another thing I thought about, Dr. Achebe, she's the associate dean in social science. I'm a DEI fellow with social science, with the College of Social Science. Sometimes they are looking for students to be involved in some capacity. So knowing the associate dean within social science for DEI and looking and seeing if there's some roles, sometimes they advertise scholarships or things like that. So just keeping an eye on the DEI website within social science would be another way to connect as well.
That's a great tip there. I really like that. So yeah, I hope some of our students who are interested in that will follow up on that because I do know that they love to hear from students and love our students' ideas.
Yeah, Dr. Bullock, I thought of another thing too, if that's okay. Um,
Yeah,
just recognizing you don't have to, no one is an expert. So if you have an interest in DEI, that's enough. Your experiences, everyone has a different experience. Ultimately realizing that you're coming from a place where you want to help people belong. You don't have to assume that everyone knows everything about DEI, because we don't. So, wherever you fall or wherever you're interested in is enough for you to want to be a part of it. So just knowing that as well too.
that is great. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. This area is in a way it's some of it's been done, but it's really become more formalized and still new enough that we're all learning. So
Right. That's right.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's great. Um, So one question I have is about networking and building connections. And you have talked about some like with clubs. Are there specific organizations like even outside of MSU that you would recommend students get connected with, or some within MSU that we might not know about? Do you have any that you connect with personally?
Sure, sure. So the one group, one organization is the National Council for Family Relations. Dr. Bullock, you're familiar with that,
Yeah.
NCFR. Every year they have a conference where students can present. They're really good about publications. I've published a few times with them. If you have an interest in a certain call, you can work with them. But NCFR is big, the National Council for Family Relations within
Yeah.
Human Development and Family Studies. So that's a good organization. Another one is NACE, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And in all candor and full disclosure, I have to admit I'm a board member for for them, but they're a great group if you're interested in early childhood. So I know if I don't know if you all are familiar with Lori Lynn Scott. She's over in the Children's Center, but she's been active in that capacity as well. But it's the largest organization for working with young children. They're a very good group as well. The Education Law Association is another group that's built on law and working with in the area of law, and so that's another group. We mentioned the pre-law. If you're interested at MSU and learning more about law and other students who are interested in law, the pre-law group would be a great group as well. Those are the initial organizations that come to mind. But I think just in general, finding an organization and at the undergrad level and getting that experience will put you ahead of other students because you're learning about research. Maybe you do a poster presentation, and it's just an idea to network. Some organizations have a call for mentors, so maybe you want to have a mentor who's already in the profession, and they will link you with that person. So just a great opportunity at the undergraduate level or the graduate level to network and to learn about individuals who are practicing the same things that you're interested in or learning or doing those same things. But organizations in general are a good experience for you.
That's a great point. And often, like you mentioned, even just starting with one organization, you learn about others
Yeah,
as you develop that relationship.
that's
So
right.
that's,
Mm.
yeah.
Yep, yep. I learned about NCFR through Dr. Ames and you. So when I was in grad school, that was one of the things that she had us do. Learn about organizations and support it. So yeah, that's an example of networking there with both of you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so a lot of really good information. So, one of my last questions is, knowing what you know now, what do you wish you had known early in your college years?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I think in hindsight, I what I would what I wish I would have realized, things fall into place. So I mentioned I was, thinking about medicine or psychology and what do you do and you're undecided. You kind of have a roadmap and a compass that kind of aligns and just trust yourself enough to know that things will be okay. Your job right now is to learn as much as you can about as much as you can to help you and inform you as to what you want to do. And listen to the signs and listen to the signals. And don't be afraid to take chances or change your mind. And now's the time for you to explore as much as you can and change your mind. And feel free to just if something's not sitting right, then do something about it because like we were saying, you have a long time to be doing something that you're not enjoying, and hopefully you find what it is that you do enjoy. But it's better to do it now than later on when you have to go back and now's the time for you to explore and learn as much as you can, but also realizing that it will be okay. You'll be okay. You'll find your niche and ultimately things work out. So I guess going back to that question, Dr. Bullock, just realizing that like things sometimes it, it's a lot and you're not sure, but you end up realizing that it falls into place. So just really realizing that and giving yourself some grace and knowing that it ends up being okay.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Trust yourself, know the signs if something's not sitting right, and which can be hard to do, when you come to college and you think this is definitely what I want to do, and then you find out it doesn't really feel very good.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Right.
really feel right. And it's okay to, like you said, have grace with yourself to know that it probably just is not a good fit and there's another fit out there.
Oh, that's right. That's absolutely right. Yep. And I know it's easier said than done, but I think in hindsight, just realizing that and a lot of, the pressure, you put a lot of pressure on yourself. So rely on your family and trust them for support and go to your professors like Dr. Bullock. If you're not sure about something, utilize the resources that you have and talk to them about it because they want to talk to you, they want to help you and trust that they will, talk to you and help you figure those things out. But I think that's important too to utilize the resources that you have because they're all in your corner, but they don't know it unless you take the initiative and let them know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Great. So my last question is it okay if students reach out to you and contact you?
I would love that. I would love that. What's easiest for you? You'll pass it along, Dr. Bullock. Whatever's easiest.
Yeah, I can put your email address
Perfect.
in the episode description, and so
Perfect.
they can.
That's perfect. Yep. I would love to talk to you all and help you however I can, but it's my pleasure. And yep, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yep. And I have to second that because Dr. Johnson loves talking to students. It's one of his favorite things from
Yeah, that's
what,
right. That's right. That's right. Yep. I'd love to. However, I can help and support. If you just have questions about anything about law school or about HDFS or about the grad school process, whatever I can do to help or support, I'm happy to. And talk to Dr. Bullock too, because she's a wealth of experience too. So between that, you're ready to go. You're set.
All right, great. Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for coming on today's episode. I just know my students are going to get a lot out of all the great information that you shared.
Hope so. I hope so. Yeah. Congratulations. Keep hanging in there. I know it's a lot, but you will be okay, and hopefully I'll meet you along the way.
Thank you for joining today's episode of the HCFS Career Podcast. I hope you enjoyed meeting Dr. Brian Johnson and hearing about his background and how diverse it is in the different career trajectories that he has had, different areas that he has worked in. So I hope you learned a lot from him. Please feel free to reach out to him if you would like to learn more about how to get connected with a career in law and policy and advocacy, or in DEI, or even those retention and recruitment programs that were discussed. So definitely feel free to reach out to him. He loves connecting with students. And so he would not mind at all receiving an email from you. And his email address will be in the episode description. Please join me again soon as I interview more professionals with a background in HDFS or a background that's related to HDFS, so you can learn the varied paths that you can take as you complete your degree in HDFS.